the Quinn Marr Show.
This show is brought to you by Bing Pot Trivia. How many times have you been to a trivia night where it just felt like somebody reading questions? Well, Bing Pot Trivia prides themselves on bringing high-energy, dynamic hosts to every event. The show leans heavily on visual elements. Their questions are designed to make you laugh or roll your eyes, while also challenging your knowledge on pop culture, high school science, culinary arts, and everything in between. Their typical show runs 5 rounds, including a photo round, general knowledge on pop culture, riffs on different game shows, absurd 50-50 questions, and a super sweet music round. Check out bingpottrivia.com today to book your trivia night. Again, that is at bingpottrivia.com. Tell my boy Danny that your friend Quinn sent you. All right, let's get on with the show. My next guest was part of one of my favorite bands growing up. I first caught wind of them while watching Family Channel, and quickly they blew up. They were on Radio Disney's Next Big Thing. They performed with megastars like Emily Osment and Marianas Trench. They did a lot in their few years together. Eventually, this guy decided to pursue a solo career and has been killing it ever since. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Quinn Marr Show, Nathan Darmody. Nathan, what is going on?
What's up, Quinn? Hey, man, I'm so stoked to be here. I'm glad you reached out to me through the comments.
Yeah. Dude, I appreciate you coming on here. This is really cool. Like I've said this before, like it's really a cool thing to have all you guys on the show, like everyone I've had, because it's like I watched you on TV or I listen to music, blah, blah, blah. But now like I feel like I'm on the TV with you. You know what I mean? Like now when I see the music video, it's like, hey, like feel like I'm part of it. You know what I mean? So
that's great.
I appreciate it. So we're going to get into a bunch of stuff here. Obviously, we'll get into Allstar Weekend, what you're doing now, because it is pretty cool. So that's 100% we'll get into that. But I did want to just take it back first. So you grew up in Cali, right?
Yeah, I grew up mainly in San Diego for most of my life, but I've lived, when I was like 3 or 4, I was in New York. I lived upstate New York.
Oh, nice.
And so I moved across. We drove across the country, like 3,000 miles or something like that with my family. And then we moved here to San Diego, and I was like living with my great grandmother at the time. And before we kind of settled here in Poway, which that's where I reside right now. So I'm actually kind of back where I grew up, and, I'm married. So I'm living with my wife here in Poway, and it just feels there's a magic in Poway. There's something about Poway. I mean, I feel like a lot of great artists have come from this area. It's a great place to, get raised and like live out your dreams. And I feel like it contributed a lot to me being able to explore my creative path,
That's pretty cool though. That's cool that you like were able to leave, do all the stuff you did, and then come back. And I feel like you probably look at it like you look at the place different now, right?
I look at it. Yeah. So somewhat just like I have a new lens on life, I'm a little bit more mature. I'm just, if anything, it's just being more appreciative of where I grew up and having the freedom and flexibility to, stretch my creative arms out and be the best creative version of myself that I can.
Right.
And there's something beautiful about this place. So yeah, San Diego is amazing. It's, I've lived in LA, but nothing really compares to San Diego. And there's a lot of things you could do now virtually to reach out to people that live in these big cities like LA, Nashville, Florida. So you don't always have to show face necessarily. But if I have to tap in and go to LA, it's only a 2-hour drive. So it's nice to be here, and it's less of a smog situation. It's getting crowded. Yeah. It's getting more crowded every year, but it's like where I live, it's like in the middle of like the woods, basically. All these houses are surrounded by these tall eucalyptuses and orchards. And so you kind of have this feeling of kind of being off the grid. So it's nice.
That's perfect though, because like you're not too far away, like too out of it, like literally in the middle of the woods, but at the same time, you're not stuck in the middle of like the busy, like craziness of like LA, right?
Sure. I love tapping in and going there. Like I was just at the NAMM show. That was in Anaheim, not really LA, but I was at the NAMM show, which is like a big music trade show. It's like 5 days, and you just play with all this new audio equipment. You network. You basically go to these seminars, and you just learn about all the new things that they're presenting forward. Music platforms, audio gear, social media networks, all this stuff, and then you just learn and network. It's great.
You definitely look like a gearhead or like an equipment guy to me, especially because I had read about you guys editing all your music and stuff, like when you were with the guys in Allstar Weekend in your bedroom originally, right?
Yes, and the funny thing about that is I was not tech savvy at all when I first started. I was not tech savvy at all. I had the attention span of an ant. I don't know what an ant's attention span is, but it can't be that long. And so it was really complimentary to have someone like my buddy Tom Norris, who I actually talked to him the most out of everybody. He was the one that left the band early on, which was probably the best decision he could have made, because now he's winning winning Grammys, and he's working with the best, and he's living in LA, and he's able to sustain a career based off of just mixing. He's an incredible resource. He's always been an incredible resource. But yes, he was really the one that helped us have the sound that we did. It wouldn't have been able to have this polished sound that it did. We wouldn't have these demos that sounded as great as they did. Like, they sound like finished product. And so he was really essential to the production and the mixing element. And then we had Zach, of course, who was just a genius with lyrics. I remember going to his house. He'd had this huge drawer. You pull out his drawer, and there were just poems and poems and poems, just gems. Like, you pull something out and just write a song. So he brought that to the table. And with me, you just had like this creative fuel, this gasoline that never really seemed to tire. Like, I was really good at bringing people together. Also a songwriter, right? I was a songwriter. I was more the guy that pitched the general idea. Sometimes I would finish songs, but I was the guy that would pitch like the general idea, and we'd kind of work around it and fill in the gaps. And that's what I always wanted. And it's really funny with that band. Like, we all kind of put it together, but when it came to actually being serious, I was like, Zach, I want you to be the singer. You're going to be the singer. Tom, you're going to be doing this. I didn't want the spotlight. I didn't care so much. Maybe because it was just from some sort of like being shy or whatever. Regardless of that, it became what it became just naturally. Everything kind of fit into a whole perfectly. You know what I mean? Everything kind of fit into its place really 100%. Well. So
before we get into that, because I did read that you had talked about how you kind of moved everyone around a little bit, but I want to go like a young Nathan. What was a young Nathan like? What was he into? Was music always number one? Was it sports, comics? I want to take back to like just little Nathan in Poway, or in San Diego, I guess.
San Diego. Yeah. So I did. Yeah. I've been in San Diego since 96. So this is like my play, something like that. A little bit. Yeah. Like 96. So this is San Diego's my place. I'm a surfer kid. I'm all about yoga. I'm all about meditation, but that's now. Before that, I thought my family thought I was going to be a dancer. Strangely enough, I would literally put on all of the pop classics like Spice Girls, like Destiny's Child, like Backstreet Boys, like Michael Jackson. I would put on a full album and I would turn up my stereo to like 11 and just like dance for hours. Like that was really my first introduction into the creative arts. Just me naturally loving to dance. And I did that for a long time. I didn't like go and compete or whatever, but it was just kind of like this running joke my family has is like, oh yeah, we always thought you're going to be a dancer. I didn't really, or whatever, I just loved to move. I would, in my diapers, I would be on like my parents' coffee tables dancing to the Little Mermaid soundtrack, literally just rocking that thing and just going crazy. I have like footage of that as a kid. So I always loved to move. I was also an escape artist. My parents would find me across the street at a neighbor's house in my diaper, like crossing busy intersections. So I had to get out, I was an adventurer. Yeah. And I feel like that curiosity and adventuring out from climbing trees and escaping out the front door to my neighbor's house to dancing, it kind of lent itself and kind of in a really weird way paved a way for me to use that in a more constructive way, I guess, as I got older. So like looking at those seeds planted early on, it's kind of cool.
How does somebody figure out they can sing? Coming from someone who can't sing a single note, how like where does that come from?
You can't sing a single note?
Well, I mean, I could sing, sure, terribly, but I could sing.
That's the age old question, Quinn. That's the age old question, and it's so funny that you brought that up because my wife, she brought that up like a couple weeks ago. Like, where does singing come from? It's this kind of innate. Some people work at it, right? Some people work at it, and for some people, it's just second nature. And for me, it's always been second nature. And I think it's always, for me, it's been my ability of just being empathic, being able to be around things, hear a song, see somebody move a certain way, see someone speak a certain way, and really take it all in as if I'm inhaling, or drinking or whatever, just literally taking something in like a drug and like letting it be and becoming it. And I think being able to mimic, and it's like an actor, right? I think music is acting in a way, because you kind of are putting on this persona. So you can kind of liken it to music and be able to sing as like an actor. You're just able to hear it and replicate it. And I think it's way more deep than that, but I think it also has to do with blocking out this voice that you can't, and and just doing it and being free and allowing yourself to do it. Some people are definitely tone deaf for sure. I've definitely met people that are tone deaf, and it's tough. So yeah, I think at an early age, if you can get on a piano, that's a great place to start, because you don't have to be born with it, right? You don't have to be born with it. Like, you can just have it around you. And I think I always just had music around me, and it was just something that called me, and I just naturally gravitated towards it. You don't, when you can sing, I think people will tell you if you can or can't, ideally. And that could also be determined based off of how much success you have, how people are responding to what it is that you're doing. And it's also good to know your skill level. It's also good to know, do I need to keep working at this? I still need to keep working at singing. And so I hired a vocal coach. I've done like 40 lessons, and they're just an hour of just getting ripped apart about, it's like therapy sessions basically. And you're trying to get through this blockage to be able to open the chakras up and let the voice come out, let your inner voice come out. Here's the thing. What determines you as a good singer or not a good singer is so debatable, because you have people like Bob Dylan who can't sing a note for shit.
True.
Dylan can't, and you have folk singers and in the folk world, you don't have to have this extravagant, I'm on the voice type of vocal cord. You don't have to be that type of singer. So that's the thing about what constitutes you being a singer or not. It's kind of is it subjective or whatever, whatever that word is. Yep. So yeah, it just really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to get, out of a music career.
So not only were you dancing at a young career, and then obviously you were singing as well, but then you also played guitar. So when did the guitar come into the picture, like being a guitarist? Was that before singing or after?
That was way after. And that was just a godsend sort of situation. I never knew my dad. So this is kind of how my dad came into the picture. My dad, he was playing in bands as a kid, and I never really knew it. So he grew up in Chicago, and he just, not only was he an awesome engineer, computer engineer, software engineer, he was an inventor of softwares, and he's just like a brain. And he also was a kick-ass musician. And I didn't know that. And so one day I was just like, as like young boys do, you just go into your sister's rooms or your parents' rooms and like open up drawers and stuff and just get into trouble. I pull out a guitar case I've never seen before in my life. I'm like, I'm 10. How have I never been introduced to this thing? What is this thing? And I pull it out, and I talk to my dad about it, and I'm like, what's the story? What's the story behind this Stratocaster that's been collecting dust underneath your bed? And boom, he was like, I was waiting for the right time to tell you. And I guess, I'm gonna teach you all about, you know, this whole craft and this whole side of me that I was waiting to. He was gonna wait till a little bit when I was like a little bit older, till I was in high school, but it found me. And I wanted to be a drummer initially. I wanted to play drums, but like as most parents, they don't want to hear you,
Fair. Yeah.
you know, and
Hearing
you
that all
know,
day, every day, that's fair.
you know.
Yeah.
So they don't want to hear that. And I wanted to be a drummer so bad. Like that's what I wanted to do. Like that's what I felt like I was destined to do. But I'm glad that guitar found me. So yeah, and then my dad was my teacher for the most part.
Huh.
So like, and he actually plays a pivotal role in spurring my musical interest. He had vinyl collections, he had CD collections, just cabinets full. And okay, like what's the lesson this week? Okay, here's Bob Marley, here's the Rolling Stones, here's AC/DC, here's Led Zeppelin. And you know, when albums were like amazing, right? Here's, you know, Nirvana's Nevermind, here's the Foo Fighters, here's Hootie and the Blowfish, Counting Crows, here's Fleetwood Mac, all these bands, you know. So I grew up listening to the greats, you know. It was more, he was like my teacher, still is.
That's amazing. That and that's like you said, he played such a pivotal role, but like the fact that you had that literally in your house as like a mentor, that's amazing. Like that probably helped you get so much farther along than so many other people, right?
I think so. And then I think more so his discipline and his work ethic, just in general, helped me just learn how to persevere and be persistent. I would wake up at like 5 a.m. when MySpace was a thing and we were outer space politicians in our band, and I would be following hundreds of friends and DMing people and messaging people every day for like a whole year, just trying to get our band bigger. And on top of that, I wouldn't go out and party on weekends, even though I was considered a popular kid. I was a social surfer. I was an awesome athlete. Kick-ass athlete, could go toe to toe with anybody, I'm telling you. And but I was more sensitive, and I was more called to the arts to put my energy towards that sort of thing. And I knew, you know, the longevity of an athletic career could be cut short like so quick, you know, with injuries and all that. And I knew I was the kind of guy that was prone to being injured all the time, even though I was a rough kid growing up, wrestling with all my neighbors and beating each other up and all that. Like, you know, because I grew up with a bunch of kids just growing up around me, and we would just like, you know, rough house and all that. So in sports, and like I was great at football, like lacrosse was my thing. But yeah, I was called to music, and I think because I just naturally picked it up so fast, my parents were like, "What the hell is this guy doing on this piano? He's just conducting these songs with no theory or anything." And back then there's like no tutorials, right? There's not this quick, easy access to like learn something. You just are. And for me, I just am a creative person. In conversation and within my friendships, in producing and mixing and mentoring. And yeah, I love it. I love creating something from nothing. I think that spark inside of me lends itself to being able to pick things up so natural.
Right. No, something about like just creating in general, like for me with the podcast, like it's just fun. Like it being in the middle of the creation, like you said, like bringing it from nothing, and then the final product, you just like feel like such like a sense of like maybe completion's not the right word, but like, you know what I mean? Like you just feel nice. It's like, wow, look at what I just brought together from nothing.
In the podcast game it's tough. There's a lot of elements that go into it. You know, you got to reach out, contact somebody, and, you know, you're crossing your fingers that you get a response, and then you put the show together, you know, you edit it in your own magical way, and then you put it on a platform, and then you can add music to it. There's intros, and this is another creative process. And, you know, we can talk about, I have a podcast as well. We can talk about that. So I understand it. So I understand, you know, I know you've probably you got to jump through a couple of hoops to make it work, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. And like before this, we're trying to troubleshoot stuff. And I'm like, I swear I'm a musician. I swear I get this. And I'm like working on audio stuff.
Yeah.
So sure. I respect the hustle. I respect the hustle tremendously that you're out here just sharing your story.
I appreciate that. Why? And I also appreciate you being here, because wouldn't be able to do this without the guests I get. Right. So,
well, I was going to say that makes it a challenge for you right out of the gate.
Yeah, because every single episode is with a guest. I don't do solo episodes. The whole point of the
Well,
show
and also
is,
you're reaching the people that had like been established.
exactly. Yeah. So, like, there's about 90% time I don't ever hear back. So
that's tough. Well, I'll have to put you on and give you a shout out and all that for sure.
I
once you
appreciate that. I
put the
appreciate that.
marketing materials together.
Yeah, well, thank you. I want to go into when you started writing music, and you mentioned your friend Tom. So you guys went to school together. Did you kind of just like come together and be like, oh, you realize he liked music, you're into music, and then boom, you guys start writing the songs together? Like, where did that creation come from?
I mean, in a box, that's really what it was. It was a conversation. He was a kid in my class. We were just complete opposite. You know, we were just different people, but I never saw it like that. I just saw someone who's really smart, really driven and talented. We had completely different friend groups and all that. Like, we were complete strangers, but I was that kind of guy that would just talk to the kid in class, you know, that maybe a lot of people didn't really talk to, like, you know what I mean? Like, but like in his own world, he was like this, he was like a big deal. So when it started with us, our first collaboration was a metal song.
Oh,
and it was my first introduction into an engineering's mindset. He picked up DJing really early on as a kid. He was Are You Envious? That was his DJ name for a while. Are You Envious? He could do everything. I think from mixing to producing, just making things sound good. He's also really good at web development, graphic design. Super smart too. I think he studied linguistics up at what's that school in Florida? Sorry, in San Francisco. The school in San Francisco. Anyways, but so I learned really early on, like, this guy knows what he's doing. He can maybe help make my creative ideas actually sound good. So our first collaboration was like, hey, he knew I could play guitar. He didn't really play guitar. He didn't really play any instruments then. Probably does now. And so I come up with a riff. I would send it to him and he just make it sound great. And I'm like, okay, I got to have this guy on my team.
Yeah.
And it was literally like a year and a half later, everything happened for us, because from that moment on, I learned, okay, I was in bands as a kid already. I was, a bunch of garage bands. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take this serious. Like, this is what I want to do. And so I got to have this guy on my team. And so he was in my geoscience class. We talked. Hey, I play guitar. He knew I play guitar. Hey, I know you engineer. I've heard a lot of good things about you. Boom. We started collabing and sending files, via the internet and all that, and MySpace and email. And it led to me going like, hey, I'm in this other band. And I know this singer guy, he's Zach, and he's a great lyricist. Let's bring him in and have him sing. I'll play guitar. Maybe I'll do some background vocals and see what happens from it. And it was just like instant magic with those two. Right. And it's always better with people. It's always better to collaborate with people. And just, there was this magic, this force field that we had. It's like you couldn't, no one could mess with us. It felt like we were like invincible in a way.
Right.
And we could just walk the walk and talk the talk. And we like kind of took it serious, but didn't really. It just came so easy to us because we all complimented each other. So if I had a writer's block, I had Zach there with lyrics. I had Zach there to do the lyrics, and it just came so effortless with him, which I still don't understand to this day how it came so easy to him. And same with Tom, and then for, with me as a songwriter and producer and guitarist and all that too. It just in creating hooky earworms. That's always been my thing. Is just creating the earworm that just gets stuck in your head.
Right.
And I think I actually, one of the things I did growing up as a kid is I would fall asleep with the radio on. So when I was like maybe 6 years old, all the way through like freshman year of high school, I would fall asleep with like the mainstream radio. So everything that you heard in the 90s, early 2000s. And I think partly it was because it blocked out all the noise of just kind of, my parents would fight a lot. They divorced once when I was 8, and then they got back together, and they stayed together for the kids, like Blink-182 would say. And they really just hated each other. but we didn't really know we could feel the anger and them not really loving each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having the radio on was one of those, it's like a therapy session. I can kind of block out the noise, and just at the same time, I was also fantasizing about being a rock star, about, oh, it'd be so cool to be on stage and people love you. And so when you fall asleep to, top 40 radio, that stuff, when you're falling asleep, it's just like in your brain constantly. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of those hidden secrets, that kind of lent itself to me being able to write things that are marketable.
Right.
That, I've done TV placements, right? Miley Cyrus's last song, you got the Prom soundtrack. There's like another Disney soundtrack. I don't know, there's a few others. And so like those are the songs that ultimately, did the best. So yeah, just a bunch of little things, coming together. And as a kid, I realized I was more of an introvert than an extrovert.
Really?
Too, which is really funny because when you see me, when there's a camera on me, I can put on this persona, this like over exaggerated version of myself. Just, I don't know. I just loved having the camera on me. Actually, it's so funny now that I think about it. Before even music, I thought I always had a camera with me too, growing up as a kid, and I was always filming everything. So jackass stunts, my pool parties, I always threw the biggest pool parties in middle school. Like hundreds of kids came over.
That's amazing.
And I had my camera with me. I had my parents' camera. I had the high 8 tapes and all that. And so a lot of it was, and I inspired some of my friends to get into videography from that. So I don't know. I thought maybe that was going to be something I was going to do too, but yeah, music was just so much cooler.
But it's also great to have that in your back pocket too, just in case. You never know, right? I mean, when you're going to use that, because like you always can for almost everything, right? Especially nowadays with social media and the way like content creation is, like that's something that would be like so ideal to people.
Yeah.
Attractive.
Oh, absolutely. And I put out this pop punk song under my pop punk band name that I started called FDCT. I'm not really releasing anything on there anymore. It's just more like it's in the archives now. You can go there and check out my Instagram page and look at some of the pop punk songs I released on there. But I shot a music video for this song called Something Good. I didn't shoot it. Sorry. The team shot it, but I edited the whole thing, color grading, all that. So I've always loved video editing. And if you go back to the early Allstar Weekend, just like random fan videos, a lot of those were just made by me. I made a lot. I just loved doing it. It was just another creative outlet that I had that I enjoy doing it. So I'm really like a jack of all trades,
That's awesome. And it's funny because you were talking about MySpace earlier and how like you're sending out like so many messages to so many people, your song just trying to get out there. And this is when you guys were outer space politicians. So one, I want to hear the story about that name because that's hilarious.
The best band. That's the best band that ever existed. Well, better than anything we ever did. Like
that
honestly.
Sucks that like I think I saw an interview with Zach and he talked about basically you guys got like talked out of the name of the song to change it. So I want to go into that name, and then two, just the way you're able to gain traction on MySpace, because a lot of people, like I had MySpace, but that's because I had an older sister. So like if I didn't, I probably wouldn't have had it. So not a lot of people really my age know about it and know what it was like. So I do want to get into that. But yeah, outer space politicians. Give me the rundown of the name.
Dude, Zach came up with the name, right? Zach came up with the name. We were just sitting in my bedroom and I remember when we had to change the name. That's another story. But yeah, it was really derived from the sounds that we were making. It was like more of the sonic landscape that we're trying to create. It was spacey, out of this world. What's out of this world, outer space. And I don't know why politicians I don't even know how politicians came into the picture, to be honest with you. But outer space politicians. I mean, Zach came up with the name. That was kind of it just happened. I think we were looking through, dictionaries, trying to put different words together, and that's just kind of how it came. It was, and I remember when we did Battle of the Bands with my friends that were like into hip hop, we like fused and we called ourselves outer space politicians for like a talent show because I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I love that.
It just came. It was organic. There's some thought process in the making. It had a little bit to do with the sounds that we're coming up with. You know, like TV on the radio, submarine warfare, writer's block. There's a bunch of other demos that people haven't heard that I think Hollywood Records probably owns the masters to those. If I put it out, they probably assassinate me or whatever. You know?
yeah. You'd hear about it pretty quick, probably.
So annoying. Labels. Oh gosh, people do have good relationships with their labels. We had a pretty good one, but I think ultimately our managers really kind of, you know, bit the hand that was feeding us in a way, and some emails got leaked and all that. But by the way, we, you know, not bashing on my managers completely, but you know, they do have a long history of not so good of relationships with a lot of really big indie bands, you know, and
that's too bad.
But yeah, I think that was kind of partly they were also really, they're just geniuses at the same time. They're also really good at like creative ideas, like, you know, one of them was like a video director. I think he directed our first A Different Side of Me and all that. But yeah, and then they wanted us to change the name, and so we were obsessed with Smash Mouth. We were obsessed with the 90s anthems, man, you know, and so we transitioned from Outer Space Politicians to Allstar. We were just Allstar. And then Zach always tells this story, but it was more so Allstar was like synonymous with so many other things in sports related activities or whatever. So we just added Weekend to make it seem a little bit more of like an artist. And it's kind of like, yeah, everybody loves The Weekend, right? That was kind of like how we pitched it. Everybody loves The Weekend, you know, so Allstar Weekend. And
I like that though. No, I mean, it's simple, and it's a simple explanation because like you can't really argue it.
Yeah, you can't. It just became that, and it worked. And so it was definitely the right move. I listened back to the stuff we did with Outer Space Politicians, and we had something. We should have just kept. Ultimately, it's like it coulda, shoulda, woulda, but I wish it would have just stayed us three. Like, no offense to Michael and Cameron, but they probably would have came in the picture, or maybe Cameron would have floated in and out or whatever. But yeah, we should have just said, we shouldn't have done the management thing. We should have just kept working on that and as independent artists, and we still probably would have been successful.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but at the same time, it's like back then you guys were probably so desperate just for like the attention, or you were like, oh, like that was like the old school way to do it. You get a manager, they get you a label, like, right? So at the time, it's like you kind of had to do that because like nowadays it's different with like social media and everything, but back then it's like that was the road you had to go down, right? Yeah,
we literally, it's so amazing, and I talk about. Now I'm more, I lean into my intuitiveness. I'm a very intuitive person. I lean more into being empathic and more like psychic in a way. But I talk about visualizing yourself. All three of us visualized ourselves doing it. We could see ourselves on the label. We can see ourselves, you know, playing to the masses. We can see ourselves selling CDs and records, see ourselves having a fan base. Every day, when you're just in the act of doing it every day, and you have a team of like-minded people, and you're all on this journey and this road, and every day you're manifesting this version of you and this goal. We did that so well as a band that we literally said, this is the record label we want to be on. And we were on the record label. Like, I don't know how many people can do that. When you can just say, like, we literally had a goals. Like, we were smart about it. Like, we weren't stupid. We knew what we were doing. We knew we had a thing. But at the same time, you know, some of the guys were getting ready to go to college, and some, you know, you had the parents kind of weighing in on the conversation now. But it was really Tom that had reached out. He had DM'd and was talking to a scout at like Drive Thru Records, and that scout ultimately got us our management, which led us to going into Radio Disney's NBT, which led us to showcasing for like a dozen labels, which led us to getting that gig with Hollywood Records. But it's so funny. We were manifesting, and it wasn't a thing. It wasn't talked about back in the day about manifesting being intuitive and all that. But we could visualize ourselves doing it, and we did it. And I'm telling you, people can do the same thing. And that's literally a segue to me talking about what I teach in my artist development mentorship program called I'm With Love. And it's all about being empowered by love. And what I do is I do one-on-one sessions like this. You know, if I can't do it in person, we go over Zoom. We talk about the songwriting process. We talk about putting a band together. We talk about how to pitch yourself to playlists, curators, to managers, all that stuff, to my master class, which I take in a student, 1 to 4 students. And for 6 months, we build your music portfolio from the ground up. So we put together EP. And then, I learned how to deal with imposter syndrome. I teach you how to deal with a writer's block, how to put a band together with style, how to look for all the red flags, and how to open doors that weren't there. And I've had 100% success already just with with this artist. And he's got a band, he's got an amazing EP, he's got his huge PR company that he's working for, he's got an engineering team. And ultimately you have my network of, my Rolodex of people that you have indefinitely. And so when I left the band, fast forward, I had wished I had some sort of music mentor that was going to be there to hold me and help me, pick up the pieces, but that doesn't exist. And I think that's what people need to understand, is that like you get to this point where you got to kind of fend for yourself. Right. And people aren't really, there's a lot of people that are not willing to go out of their way to like help lift you up and get you back on track or learn the ins and outs of the industry. Like there wasn't any mentors. There was nobody there to like help me when I left the band. And it was partly I didn't care about the fame. I didn't want any of that. I mean, ultimately that's why like I left, and other things too that, but yeah, I mean, so that's kind of what my program teaches though, and it's something I'm really passionate about, because I wish I had mentorship. And now I give young artists now in even a harder world to break out in, harder than ever, because now it's like there's social media and it's like you can market yourself and you can get an audience really quick, but there's a lot of people that don't have talent, that probably shouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. But they're saturating the market and for 15 minutes of fame. And so now you got to weave through that. But then sometimes those people, maybe they come from a good financial background and they're able to weave their way in and fake it till they make it. And there's a lot of that too. But I teach you how to become an artist, an engineer. I teach you how to become your own mentor. I teach you how to be more empowered and a leader. And so, and I love the music thing. When you look back at me and everybody else that was in the band, like think about who's still doing it. Mm-hmm. Like I have the passion for it and the drive, and I've know 10,000 ways of not to do a certain thing, so I've troubleshooted like my whole life and persevered through a lot just to still do this thing. And it's, you gotta be strong,
Yeah, no, 100%.
You gotta be strong.
And one thing that you guys did when you were trying to get big that like people don't do it now because of social media is you guys would busk a lot. I read. Busking. And like you guys would go in front of like concerts and stuff. Like I think Jonas Brothers concert you guys went out before. So like that just shows the difference of the industry back then compared to now.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you really think about it, it really wasn't that long ago, but so much has changed in that like little span of time, which is nuts.
I know it's like that. It was like a couple of years. It was like right between 2011, 2014. You saw like the industry changing a lot. People weren't really selling CDs as much anymore. Like Taylor Swift is, of course, like Eminem, Rihanna, those types of artists were really selling CDs. But yeah, aside from that changing, also record labels were merging with other bigger record labels. They're cleaning house. And the record labels, and then A&R role looked a little different. Like a lot of people kind of it was kind of like not really worth having A&Rs anymore too. So that really wasn't a thing. And now record labels take way less risks on artists, even if they have 300,000 views and like on streams and like huge audiences, record labels still won't take chances on developing people so much anymore. Not as much.
And that's where you come into play.
That's where I come into play. A lot of people don't want to work from the ground up. And trust me, it's not for the lighthearted for sure. You gotta have tough skin and a lot of patience working with young talent. But that's the whole thing, creating something from nothing. And this is another creative avenue that I wanted to explore. So, and I've already been seeing success with my artists, and they're out there kicking it, killing it. They're like, yo, I'm setting up a writing session with so-and-so. Yo, the PR company I'm working for is like putting me on. I got a band together. You know, it's like, it's so cool and way more rewarding kind of being behind the scenes and watching it all happen. Yes, you can go out there and deal with everything that you have to deal with being an artist, but you're going to be equipped now. You're going to know how to, you're literally going to shed years off of your career path of getting from point A to point B. And that's the way I like to look at it, because it could take a decade to break. Like Dua Lipa took like at least a decade to break. Jay-Z didn't break till he's like 27. Jelly Roll didn't break till he was 40. You just hear artists and think about that. You're like, what? These people are mad talented. But I teach you how to be personable too, how to pitch yourself. So, I mean, a lot of this serendipitous energy, a lot of these partnerships and opportunities come from this kind of serendipitous meeting of minds. And I pitch you to get into to put yourself right into that position to, you know, meet these people at the right time, right moment, and, you know, elevator pitch and all that. But like all these little things, man, you know, get you in the right place, right time. I could talk. I love my artists. I love their successes.
Oh, well, and that's,
you know,
like, it wouldn't be authentic if you didn't, obviously, right?
Exactly. And it's like, I'm always telling them, I'm like, I don't care about so much about the money thing. I want to, if we got to take a little bit longer on the record than whatever date we set, then we got to take a little bit longer just to make it great. You know, if you have to bring somebody else in to, you know, another engineer to make it sound even better, then that's what we do. Just patience.
Right. And I mean, it's
nice
because the one thing that you don't have to deal with is handing out flyers. I know that's something you guys did, which is, again, that's so insane that was like 14 years, 15 years ago. Like 14. And then you're handing out flyers. So it's like, it's nice that with you now, with what you're doing with your artists, that like you have so much more resources that can help them and then ultimately help you. Right. So what I want to know is, because I read that you guys had multiple offers from different labels. So how did you guys land on Disney? I guess just, was it because of the machine that was behind Disney?
The Disney machine is nothing can mess with it. It's the biggest machine, still is. And a boy band. So look, you got boy band of guys that all play their own instruments and they all songwrite. Then you had this rambunctious, when we were all together, there's just like this energy, like you feel it. We'd all riff off of each other. It felt like we were just like funny Disney kids, you know, like you could see from probably a label's standpoint, oh my gosh, like developing a show around these guys, the personalities, and also they're looking at demographics too, of, you know, the money making machine. There's a lot of little things that come into play, of course, because you're running a business. But we pretty much showcase for everybody, you know, like from Capitol Records, we did Universal Music, you know, all those guys. Disney, I think ultimately it came down to, we didn't have the best deal, but it came down to, I guess, the people too that were a part of Disney. We also really liked, like, for example, their A&R, Jeffrey Weiss, super, super cool, has like one of the biggest record collections on the planet. And then everybody else that was involved and all the songwriters that we could work with in that realm, it just fit us. We are a boy band. It just made sense. You know, it just made sense for all of us. And ultimately, we had one of the biggest, most legendary showcases of all time. Like, we literally had every single person from Hollywood Records there. Everybody.
That's so sick, but nerve-wracking at the same time.
Like, it's like unheard of. It was like 80 people there to watch us. And we probably weren't that good, but they could see the potential. And yeah, it was surreal, and it's all happened so fast. I remember I was wearing we're all wearing like ties. We kind of wanted to give into the Jonas Brothers thing, but like have more of the edge of some of the other Disney acts that have, that they were developing as well, but also be a hybrid of who we were too. The showcasing thing that's the hardest gig you'll ever play for sure for artists. If you ever get to that point where you're showcasing for somebody,
especially with 80 people and like the 80 most important people too, not just 80 fans. It was the 80 most important people, right? So
that'll change your life. Yeah,
I remember thinking this back then, and like going back and seeing your guys' videos now that like people were saying it back then or still saying it now. To me, you guys were like the original One Direction. You guys were One Direction before them, and it helped that you also had that Disney element too. So like you had mentioned earlier, you had music in The Last Song, Prom, almost every single Family Channel / Disney Channel commercial break. I was seeing your guys' music videos. So did you guys hear a lot of those comparisons back then?
Yeah, it's a good question. I never really thought about it like that. Being like the first like One Direction, I could see that.
Like there was a big gap between boy bands from like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. Then there was nothing for like a while that was actually like doing big things. And then Allstar Weekend, One Direction, obviously the Jonas Brothers were before that. But like there was a span where there wasn't really boy bands the way there used to be.
I mean, there were, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there was like Honor Society and a couple bands like that tried to break. Well, I mean, I think they ended up doing some pretty big things, but no. And then also just we were like the interracialness, like, Cameron is Asian. A lot of people don't know that. And then Michael's Filipino, me being African American. I probably was like the first African American to be in like a pop rock band like that. Aside from like Sum 41, when you have Dave Brown Sound, the lead guitarist, and they're on their last tour this year.
I know.
So sad. So yeah, that also had definitely helped, I think, because it was like mixed, and it was just like, how often does that happen, in the music industry in the way that we were doing it? I never looked at it like that. I guess I never gave myself and our band credit for being one of those first bands, or one of the first to kind of get the revival of the boy band thing spinning again.
The only one that else was around at the time I can think of off the top of my head was like The Wanted as well.
And yes, there we go. Right? The Wanted. That was one of them. Yeah.
So,
they came a little bit later.
Yeah, they did.
They broke a little bit later or whatever. Well, I remember playing some shows with them, 1 or 2 shows. Cool. Those guys were really cool.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. But I think you just got to have good representation around you to keep the ball rolling. And I think what ultimately led to the demise of all of us at our band is what most pop bands end up breaking after 3-4 years is we all had such strong personalities. We're all very independent, really smart, and I think that can only last so long. Like One Direction didn't last. They lasted maybe like 3 or 4 years, 2.
More, maybe more. I'm thinking like
more than that,
6 or 7, maybe. I think they went from like 2010 to like 2016, maybe 2015. Let's just say 5 years, which really it isn't that long, which is nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, eventually it just makes sense that people branch off and do their own thing and all that. But yeah, I mean, I guess they were looking at boy bands and like, okay, like they probably figured out the formula a little bit better in terms of like keeping the band together and doing things differently. But yeah, so stuff like that. I don't know.
I feel like we're at that point again where there's not many boy bands. Like we're back to that, like huge ones. Like again, the Jonas Brothers came back, but like you would.
Well, yeah, BTS.
That's true. That's true. You would know better than me about like the popularity of music, because obviously you're way more into it. But like I don't know, I feel like we're in that lull again of just like there we have that little small group, but it's not the way it used to be.
Boy bands, yeah. I guess what does the boy band look like in 2024? Like, and what should it look like? I guess
first one I think of Jonas Brothers, right?
Yeah, like how can you put together like another Jonas Brothers type band? And I was managing this band for about like a year and a half. They ended up breaking up, but I mean, I got them in the South by Southwest and all that. But that was actually one of my goals was to actually break them as like another Disney band. But I think a lot of them weren't really it was so funny. They're all so different. You like look at these bands. You're like, oh my gosh, everybody is so different. Completely different taste in music. Completely different levels of success that they see themselves doing. And it's so hard to make a band work for, even if people are super talented, even if you have all the right ingredients. But that's one of the things that I wanted to actually make them another Disney band really bad. But I didn't think that really gelled with the music direction and all that. But yeah, I was like music directing them for a while, and I wanted to write these songs. I would love to ultimately put together like another like Disney band. I would love that. My whole goal in life is to just make the record, you know. I want to get the band and make the record and make it that timeless thing. Like that's all I care about. I don't care if I'm homeless, living in a car in San Diego with no money. If I can get my hands on a band to work on a project like that, and we just can sit and just shoot the shit, and everybody's on the same page, and we deal with whatever stresses and problems come up like men, and just figure it out, girl or boy group, whatever. That's all I care about. And if I die after making the record, I don't care, because I did it. Like that's all I care about in life. That's all I care about. Like I love Rick Rubin. I love Pharrell. I just love like Timbaland. I love those guys. Like those guys are like my mentors to me, like Lenny Kravitz. You know, I look at people like that. I want to, that's kind of where I'm trying to position myself right now, is to be in that role. I love to develop a band. Oh my gosh, you kidding me? I have the opportunity, but yeah, it's hard.
I like how you mentioned about like the creation of trying to come up with like another Disney band, because like you with you guys, it was more like natural and more organic. But then you look at One Direction, they were literally put together.
Yes,
so it's weird how like bands will come together in different ways, because like that was kind of unheard of, the way that happened with One Direction. I don't think we've seen it since, and I don't really remember seeing it before that.
Well, weren't they on like
they're on X Factor?
X Factor
separately.
Right.
And then obviously Simon Cowell was like, no, I think you guys could go together, and clearly it worked. But they also work separately. Look how they're doing separately. Like you look at Harry, you look at Niall, Liam. I'm having a brain for the rest of the names, but like they worked together. Clearly, they blew up, and then you can see the ones that are doing better than others separately.
Sure.
So the creation of boy bands is actually a pretty interesting topic.
There is actually a boy band. About Last Night. There's this boy that's like actually one of the only boy bands I know of right now, and there's this one kid I started talking to. Let me find his name so I can put him on real quick.
I feel like if I heard him, I might know. What's his name, sir?
So there's this band called About Last Night. They're a boy band. Looks like they're picked up already, and someone's developing them right now. But this kid named David Lee, he reached out to me and DM'd me, and he like sent me a picture of like him doing an autograph at an Anaheim show, and when he was like 10, he's like, you guys are like my heroes like growing up. And now like he's in a boy band doing the whole thing. And I actually just talked to him like this week. I think he just performed at the NAMM show. Wow. But yeah, I think there are bands that are being developed, but it's you got to find the right ingredients and the right key players on your team to really make it work. And they're really talented singers. If
you had to do it again, would you go with Disney again?
If I had to do it again, would I go with Disney? I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of cool people, honestly. Like I would see Miley Cyrus in sessions sometimes, and you know, we would kick it with the Jonas Brothers just like randomly at rehearsal spaces. And then, you know, I don't know if that would be the reason why I would go back, is for those moments, but I think Disney made sense. I would go back and do it all again. Yeah. So much fun, so many great opportunities. And when you're young, you don't really realize how good you have it and how hard it is to get that, you know?
Right.
So,
so we talked about earlier, obviously you decided to leave the band in 2011. So it first came out that you weren't going to be going on tour with them, with Selena Gomez and The Scene, back when she was with The Scene. So at that point, when you decided you weren't going to be going on tour with them, had you already decided you were probably done with the band?
Yeah. Well, the thing was, like, they sent me home. I literally got a plane ticket from New York, and I flew back home, and just to, I was dealing with a lot of depression, from, just the snowballing effect of how fast we got big. And I definitely got in some arguments with the guys. We had disagreements about stuff, as and all that. And so I knew I had to go home, and it was like, it was good intentions for me to do that. And I knew I had to go and just seek mental clarity. Man, I got home, all my stress just went away. I felt so great being home and reconnecting with my family. I started getting close with my family. I started going and playing in my church, started doing Bible studies. I learned about meditation. I learned about yoga. I learned about, that I had bipolar disorder that wasn't diagnosed. I also had crazy food allergies I didn't know that were contributing to me in my depression, little things like that. And so I just looked within and seeked clarity, and I realized, oh my gosh, I think being around the Hollywood yuck is what's making me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go back. There's no way. They wanted me back. They were trying to hustle me back to come for months. But it was everybody but the person that I wanted to say that they wanted me back. Everybody but the one guy I wanted to say that I needed to hear it from, and I didn't get it from that person. So I was also hearing about horror stories of what was going on behind the scenes with management and other teams that were huge, pivotal into making the band success,
right?
And just the clashing in the meetings of minds. And so I felt like when I left, I was kind of like the bottle on the bottle of, I was like the cap on the Coke bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Once I left, everything just exploded, and everything kind of, I don't want to say all the evil came out or whatever. It was more so okay, people can really see who is who,
right?
And what's really going on, who's being shady and whatever. I remember Karen was like, dude, you're not gonna, trust me, you don't want to come back. You don't want to come back to this. And maybe one of those guys could tell you, and you can hear it from their side of the story. But there's a reason why I'm sharing the story, because I don't care. I know I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the reason why things fell apart. I just want people to know that I wasn't that reason. I guess the band didn't stay together because it just obviously won't be the same. But then you don't hear these other guys aren't doing music. They're not talking about all this. I mean, there's a lot of other things that went on that I had it's not my place to even say. Right. I can't even tell people the exact truth of what exactly happened, because it's not fair, for me to be the guy to say things. So they wanted me back, but I didn't want to go back.
Fair. And I mean, there was I think it was under 2 months from when they said you weren't, or maybe it was 3 months. It was that summer.
Summer. So I left June or July.
It was September that they said,
oh my gosh.
Or you announced September. That you were done.
Yeah, September. And they made an announcement, and I was after 3 months, I was a transformed human being. I was not the same. I was closer with my family. I was more respectful to people and myself. Like I said, I got closer to God. The biggest thing for me is I fell out of love with music. I fell out of love. And I think ultimately I wanted to protect myself. I didn't know how to express it to other people, to fans, about what was really going on. I didn't think people would really understand, or maybe I felt a little shameful because I left and was letting people down. But, that's kind of how it went. Oh, and I'm still cool with the guys. We're definitely not tight. We don't really talk that much. They all just do their own things, and I've jammed with Michael. We've done some songwriting and all that. I've even tried to put the band back together to play shows, but it's
you have.
pulling teeth trying to figure it all out. And you could tell they don't really, I can't speak for them, but let's just say the magic and then the urgency is not there like I was hoping it would be.
If it was, you guys would have done it already.
Exactly. And I probably tried 2 or 3 times, and I maybe tried a little bit harder, but it's am I the only one trying to get us all together? No one's trying to get the rehearsal to play the show. Just me, no one cares. Okay. well, maybe I'm wasting my time, and maybe, you know, sometimes just give people their space, let people do what they want to do, and respect that. And it's part of growing up, and I totally respect that.
I feel like if there was an announcement of an All-Star Weekend reunion show, I feel like that would blow up in 2024, 2025,
Oh my God.
2026, whatever. I think it would be nuts.
Yeah.
Clearly you feel the same, or you wouldn't be trying to get the guys together.
So one of the greatest people I ever met in the music industry is this guy named James Bourne, and he was one of the main reasons why we became so successful, because he helped us write Journey to the End of My Life and like Here With You and a few other songs. And I'm actually gonna do some songwriting with him hopefully in February with Tom, which is so funny.
Wow.
Full circle moment.
Yeah.
And I'll probably have him on my podcast as well. And so anyway, he was the same situation as us as a band. They all broke up for kind of similar reasons, and they all got back together like in their late 20s, 30s. And I was always like, why can't we do that? But I think there's some legal things kind of looming around with some of the band members as to why they like legally can't.
Oh.
Some things I can't talk about. That's what I mean. Like, you got to get Zach on. You got to. Someone's got he's the teacher. He's
so random.
I love Zach, but he's so hard to get a hold of, and everybody will say the same thing. You got to really hear. You probably will never share his story or whatever, but that was one of those relationships I valued so much. Like him and I, we had a very unique relationship, and it became tainted because just like it was us, and then management, and then the big head, you know?
Right. 100%.
So
you had said about when, like, how much better you felt after that summer, basically before that, and no one would blame you guys if you did, but did you just feel like you grew a big head and were just like, it was like egos getting in the way?
There was egos. I definitely had an ego a little bit, but
how could you not though? Like with what you guys were doing at the time,
sure.
How could you not?
But like not enough to not in the way you would think, where I'm being like destructive and mean. It's more so, I guess I always wanted to. For me, the hardest thing for me was. Well, yeah, I was like really into like MGMT, psychedelic rock, experimental. I wanted to be doing all that, but we obviously weren't doing that. I loved all the writing sessions that we had, but I think the hardest thing for me that I never really told anybody was more of an insecurity I had, and I began to form in writing sessions with all these people, because when you get into these writing sessions, for the most part, they're dealing with the lead singer. It's like the lead singer show. And I get that, and he obviously can write, so it made sense. And I would get in there on a write too, but I kind of started feeling like I was getting edged out of the writing process a little. And the same thing I felt like was happening with other members too. And so I felt like, why am I here still?
Yeah.
I know I bring something great to the table, and of course I played on everything, right? I even played bass on a lot of the tracks. Cameron didn't even play, but
really?
So, and it was so like. But I wanted to like write more, and I just felt like people don't realize once you get on a label, they throw you into all these writing sessions, and you need to pump out a song in like a couple of days. It's gotta be like done for the most part, and it's fast. And I didn't work fast; I worked slow, and I still work slow.
Yeah,
and I think that was really hard for me to like an insecurity of mine, and so I actually stopped going to a lot of like legendary writing sessions. I didn't really care, you know. I was like, why am I even here? And I didn't have a good relationship with my family at the time, and then with the band, like we all kind of we weren't really supportive of each other that much anymore. Like there was definitely, we all had egos. I'll say I had a little ego. I mean, you kind of have to protect yourself to be able to do amazing things. Every artist you see that's successful right now, by the way, that you listen to, has an ego. You have to have a level of it to be able to sustain yourself. But I didn't have an ego enough I wasn't a dick. Like I was never a dick. I think I was more sensitive and a little insecure, and kind of like always wanted things to happen like a certain way, and I didn't know how to voice. I didn't really know how to speak and say what was on my mind, you know, until it would just build up and it became like an argument. So yeah, I would get in some arguments with the guys, and I was known to kind of rage with arguments sometimes and like black out because I'm just like,
I mean,
fuming.
that's bound to happen with when you put a group of guys or just a group of people together for so long, because you guys were probably spending so much time together, especially when you're on tour, right? Like that's stuff like that's bound to happen.
And looking back, I give Zach so much credit for holding down the fort in so many ways that he did as a lead singer, you know, keeping us professional when we needed to. But ultimately, I think he needed also that support, and he wasn't really getting it from us. Like, honestly, like looking back, like I love that guy, like such a great guy, like such a smart and talented kid. You know, we all made bad decisions. Let's just say that we all made bad choices, like for real. That definitely caused rifts. And we didn't, you know, as men, we don't grow up learning to show empathy. Our dads didn't teach us shit about coping mechanisms, about sharing your emotions and getting together. Our dads didn't teach us shit.
Rub some dirt on it.
Yes. Yeah. Rub some dirt on it. And so with that being said, like when you're making all this money and getting all the success, and you got these guys that are all talented in a room, you're going to cause rifts. It's going to cause, you're not going to know how to cope.
No.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how it went down ultimately. But yeah, I ended up being cool with everybody at the end of it all. You know, I went to Cameron's wedding and got together with Zach and Michael, and we talked, and it's just better that way, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Did you guys ever have times, because like obviously at the time you guys were a bit older than the Disney like kids, the ones that were like consuming all the content. So for you guys, did it ever get like a little bit tiresome of like trying to be like just ideal for the kids? You know what I mean? Like you had like you talk about putting out like a persona, like you had to be energetic. Hey guys, you know what I mean? Like in your 20s. So like did that get tiresome?
Yeah, and I think it started showing on me in interviews a little bit that I didn't really want to be a part of it as much. I wasn't in, especially since I didn't feel like I had my buddies, you know, anymore. I especially didn't feel like a brotherhood. And so I'm like, why? And meet and greets, I'm sure people could tell that I just didn't really want to be there. And I was trying everything I could to be the best version of myself. And playing to that crowd ultimately was, it was tough. But I think almost every band's like, I want to break out of that and write my music.
Yeah.
And I want to write my music. And when I tried to, I was just like already so torn and felt powerless at the time. And trust me, everybody tried to like make it work in their own way. But yeah, I guess the thing people would say to me was like, oh, Nathan, like you just never know what kind of person you're going to get the next day. Like you just never know. And that would really hurt me a lot. And I'd realized it was an undiagnosed disorder that I had later found out, bipolar or whatever. It's not that big of a deal now. There's plenty of functional bipolar 2 types out there. So, but yeah, that always hurt my feelings so much when people would say that. And just like, it couldn't help. But this is just who I am. Like I'm trying my hardest to be, you know, what you want me to be. And that got in my head a lot. But we were a great band. Like there's no horror stories of us being sketchy with like fans and shit. Like did you hear everybody now is like done such sketchy
nuts,
shit?
Man. It's
nuts.
Like
what we weren't like that. We'd flirt a lot, but like we were never like just weird like that. You know what I mean? Too. Like we were good. These are good guys. And we just didn't figure it out. I wish we could have had whatever. No, I'm glad everything happened the way it did. You know,
100%. Then you wouldn't be where you are right now. Did you guys ever have like, or how many did you have of like early morning interviews or like Disney radio, whatever, just like hungover? Ever?
No.
Really?
No, I didn't really drink that much then.
No.
I honestly never really drank that much then. And
I'm surprised that like Hollywood didn't kind of like take over for you guys in that way. Like it'd be so easy to like go to this party, go to that party, go drink with this person. You know what I mean?
No, I didn't. I mean, I would go and party with the celebs, you know, but I was smoking weed. Like I love smoking weed.
Right.
And I grew and I've grown weed and all that. And I was smoking weed, but no, I was like, I didn't really drink and party like that. Like, no, we were pretty
tame.
Pretty boring. We were pretty disciplined.
Yeah, that's good though.
We were actually like very disciplined, to be honest with you. Like Zach had vocal coaching. I was into stretching and meditation and all that. But then, yeah, I mean, like I probably did the most, like I was doing some drugs. I never did like cocaine or like heroin or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I would do some mushrooms every once in a while and just weed. But I was never like really bringing that to interviews or anything like that. I was just naturally a crazy hyper kid
Right.
that you put me on our camera and I just like show up and I guess try to be this version that everybody wants me to be. I don't know.
And you can, I mean, that you can
I
see
don't
that
really
a
care.
lot when you guys had your personal YouTube channel. I was going back through the videos yesterday of like when you guys would just videotape each other when you're on tour, just like
Yeah,
fucking around. It's like you could really
the best.
and your personalities, right?
I loved watching Michael the most. Michael was probably one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my whole entire life, and one of the best drummers I think I've ever met in my whole entire life.
Wow.
And he's so funny. He is just like the comedian, just unnatural. And it's so funny. I always wanted to like be like really good friends with him, because the way he kind of came in the band is he sent in a couple audition tapes of him playing to our Outer Space Politician songs, and I found him on MySpace. I'm like, this is our drummer, and then he showed up and it was whatever. But he never like really got tight with me or anybody. He never really tried to get close with anybody, which I never understood, and I still don't to this day. He's just always trying to be cool. But I don't know if it was, maybe it comes back to what I'm saying about us being how we were brought up as men, just in general from the boomer generation. But like, I always try to be really good friends with him, and he always like found a way to push me away. Like, he never really wanted to be really close with me, and I hated that. But I always like it would piss him off, And
Yeah.
I was always I always like to touch people because I'm a Taurus. I need to like touch people, so I was always like hugging Cameron and like Michael because I knew they hated it. And
Dude, actually, it's funny we're talking about those videos and stuff because I watched one yesterday when you guys were talking about, I think you were just about to go on tour, and Cameron flipped you, and you were so close to smacking your head off the ground. It was nuts. But it's funny how you talk about touching and stuff.
Oh yeah,
you guys were just like messing around, grab each other, headlocking. But yeah, at the very end, Cameron flips you, and I've never seen someone come so close to smacking their head off concrete than that.
Oh yeah, that was at I think that was outside the rehearsals up in Burbank.
Yeah. But like, did that video specifically just kind of shows like how you guys were, and like you were just literally kids messing around, right?
Yeah, and I was definitely like, we honestly at the end of the day, like, yes, I'm obviously saying other truths that aren't always positive, but we were at the end of the day, we were all like buddies. We were all really still like good friends.
Yeah.
There was, and Cameron and I were probably the closest, and he was like really good listener, and he was like ended up being like my closest. I gelled with him the most when we started becoming more successful, and I ended up being really close with his dad for a while, and his dad was like he was kind of like a mentor for me after a little bit after. And he was saying the same thing, like, you don't want to go back,
right?
For XYZ reasons, where I'm sure someone else can tell those.
That just shows though that
that side of the story.
That shows that like what you did made sense. I have a couple more things. I swear I'll let you go. I'll stop bugging you. One, this one's gonna be tough.
Good.
This one's gonna be tough. I know it will be.
No.
What's your favorite All-Star Weekend song? Favorite All-Star Weekend music video?
Okay.
I also, sorry, before you answer that, I did not know until recently that you were not around for the Blame It on September music video.
No, I was not.
Were you on the song?
Yes, I helped write that song.
Right, but with that was probably during
it was with
summer,
Chris
right?
Daly. Yeah, I think it was with Chris Daly. Yeah, I wasn't in the music video, and I ended up not being on the cover or whatever. Which I guess that makes sense, actually. Okay, if he's not gonna be in the band, why not? But I was still credited and all that. Honestly, I can tell you my least favorite song was "Blame It on September." To be honest.
What? No way! That's my that was one of my favorites.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm sorry. People probably that's the unpopular opinion right there. That's probably my least favorite song.
I know you weren't. Sorry. I know you weren't there for the music video, and this might be such a dumb question. Where was that filmed? Was it filmed in Canada?
I think that was filmed in Canada. Yeah,
I thought so, and it's gonna sound silly, but just like the way like the houses were, I was like, because I'm from Canada, I'm like,
oh,
I feel like that's in Canada. Yeah. I live like 45 minutes east of Toronto, so when I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, that looks like it's in Canada, and then clearly it was.
Yeah. Okay. So, not that "Blame It on September" is a bad song. It just ended up being like my kind of like just least favorite. I don't know why.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and then my favorite happens to be a song that was a co-write with JP Clark and Jace. It's called, I think Jace ended up writing it and we maybe just recorded it and changed a few things, but it's called Bend or Break. And that's off of the latest record that we did when we were band, like the last big record. And yeah, Bend or Break. And then my favorite music video to shoot, obviously, it's okay. Not Your Birthday was probably my favorite, but Dance Forever will always have a place in my heart. But yeah, I would say Not Your Birthday was probably the most fun to shoot.
Yeah. I mean, they all technically look like they're fun, but that one did look like it was fun.
It was. We were having a blast. Our fans were there too. Our hardcore fans were there, and we shot it at a school in a high school in Hollywood, and it was just perfect. Everything.
And ended up being part of one of my, like, I love that movie Prom, and obviously that was
dude.
And obviously that was in it. But no, that's awesome. Last thing was, let's talk about your podcast. The floor is yours to promote anything you want, but specifically let's start with the podcast.
So starting with the podcast, yes, I have this show called the I'm With Love show. I'm With Love is also this artist development and mentorship program that I run, and I do one-on-one mentorships via Zoom or in person with artists. But also part of my masterclass program is you get to go on my podcast, and for artists that are a little bit more established, I'll invite you onto the show. And the show's a little bit different. It's not just like any other show. We don't just talk about, we're not just like joking around the whole time and talking about like your favorite color. We're diving in deep to like literally just, marketing, how to market yourself, like strategies, how do you work through imposter syndrome? How do you get confidence? Like there's actually tools on there that are actionable that you can learn in terms of like how to have a career in the music industry. Cause I'm talking to people that have established themselves in whatever discipline, and it's open to all artists, DJs. I'll even, I'm going to have some entrepreneurs on there eventually. And there's engineers on there, people that have had some sort of success. And we're just talking about, how they become successful. How do they talk to booking agents? How do they book shows? How do they put a band together? How do they songwrite? All that stuff. And so there's a lot of insightful tools on there, and you learn about their life and how they were brought up as well. And, fun facts and all that cool stuff. But another thing is I showcase their music on there, but also at the end, we do songwriting sessions. We literally do just grassroots songwriting and write a song on the spot. So I'll pitch a song, and maybe they think it sucks, or maybe they vibe with it. That's the whole thing about the show, right? Is like, this is how it is. Like sometimes that's just, and then you try to find, it's cool to see two people figure out a way to have this cohesive creative collaboration together on the spot. And I'm showing people how we work through it. And if you listen to the artists and how they're working through their own mental blocks, and you can see people like transformed at the end of the podcast of just them, how people work through writer's blocks and whatever little blockages that they have creatively to get to, a nice, a nice song or whatever.
Yeah. So that's sick.
So that's another thing I do. So yeah, we do the songwriting sessions, and my next guest is going to be this band called Rose Colored World. It's this LA band that just opened up for Sum 41. It's this pop punk band from LA. They're going to be on there soon. I'm going to have Tom on there. I'm going to have James Bourne on there. Some DJs, some artists from Nashville. It's chock full with a lot of good stuff. But it's more so about the insight that you're getting as an artist. We're not just shooting the shit and talking about our favorite bands and sharing stories. It's that, trust me, but I'm also giving them questions to help actually educate our listeners just in pretty much everything from like what creative apps they use to shoot content. How do they shoot content? All that cool stuff. So it's so worth checking out, and it's in the beginning stages, but it's going to blow up. I'm telling you right now.
Well, and I actually, it's funny because I got an email about it the other day, and I was like, what is this? Because I didn't know about it. But after you and I emailed it back and forth, and then I realized that I'm With Love, and I was like, oh, and then I got the episode sent to me. I was like, oh, that's pretty sick. And obviously I wanted to learn more about it. That's really cool.
And so my whole thing is about being empowered by love. So you think about like Fueled by Ramen. It's like XO stands for love, right? And I'm with love, and that's all about being. I'm with the artist. Like I've been in their shoes, and now I'm on the other side, and I know how you feel. I know where you can go. I know your potential, and I help guide you in as a mentor and become the greatest version of yourself. I've literally transformed artists into being in unimaginable places they never dreamed of being, and that's the whole thing. I want to make it happen for you. I want to make it happen for the artist. I want to ultimately give the power back to the artist. You put more money, if it's putting more money in your pockets, which is also important too, like to have sustainable career, like learning how to make choices so you can position yourself to actually have a sustainable career, so
right. No,
stuff like that.
That's so cool. And that's such a creative way to do it. Like you're talking about, like you have the writing sessions literally on there. Like that's not a normal podcast format you would normally listen to or watch. So that's really cool. Well, Nathan, dude, you're the GOAT. Thank you so much for coming on here. This was incredible. You fulfilled a dream of mine of being a fan of yours since I was in like grade 7, grade 8. So thank you so much. This was awesome. I appreciate you letting me bend your ear for the last hour and a bit.
Yeah, you good listener, man. I think you have like all of the key ingredients that it takes to be a good podcaster. You ask the right questions at the right time, and that's hard to do, to keep the ball rolling and get the most out of an artist. Like in a way, you are like a producer. You are in that role. So yeah, I really believe in what you're doing. I think more people should hear about this. And so let me take a quick picture too, so I can throw it on social media. Hey. Awesome.
I'll send you that cash app after for all the compliments.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate no, but this was awesome. And yeah, like I'll definitely be checking out the podcast. I'll make sure all the links are there for everyone. Check it out, and everything just like that is going on with you. I'll make sure to it'll all be there. So yeah, no, thank you again, Nathan. This was awesome.
Yes, likewise, man. I appreciate you.
And that was the Quinn Marr Show.